Sagittarius. There will be signs in this first week of June. Be careful. Sagittarius, let me ask you something your heart may already be whispering. Have you been feeling an odd sense of urgency lately? A subtle shift in the energy around you? Perhaps you've had a dream that felt more like a message, or someone crossed your path who stirred old emotions you thought had long settled. These aren't random. They are signs. Gentle nudges from the universe trying to get your attention. Now in this very first week of June, you, the cosmic traveler, were born to chase meaning and truth. But this time the answers are not out there. They're being sent inward, through subtle vibrations, small interruptions, or unexpected delays. From June 5th to 11th, the cosmos is orchestrating something sacred in your life. And this time, Sagittarius, you are not being asked to run forward. You are being asked to pause, to sense, to receive. So take a moment now. Breathe in the stillness. If you felt the shift, however softly, then trust that you're in the right place. This message found you for a reason. And if it resonates, even just a little, consider liking or sharing this with someone who may need it too. Subscribe if your spirit feels called. This space, this channel was created for soul travelers like you. Those who dare to listen, even when the world is loud. Now, let's walk through the first gate together. Gate 1, when the universe disturbs your routine. A shift in purpose. Sagittarius, have you ever noticed how some of the most important turning points in your life began with something small? A delay, a cancellation, an unexpected silence. While others might dismiss these as everyday nuisances, your soul knows better. You were born with an inner compass that doesn't just seek truth, it senses it before it arrives. And in this first week of June, your sense of purpose is being recalibrated through these subtle disruptions. Let's begin here. Your routine is no longer sacred. Not because you failed, but because you've outgrown it. If your mornings feel heavier, your work feels disconnected, or your goals suddenly lose their luster, that's not burnout. That's your higher self knocking. Between June 5th and 11th, you may experience what looks like disorganization from the outside. Plans falling through. People pulling away. Messages unanswered. But this chaos is not random. It's cosmic strategy. The universe is creating space. Not to leave you empty, but to make room for something far more aligned with the next chapter of your soul. Let me tell you about Carter, a 62-year-old entrepreneur in Arizona. His days used to be tightly packed with business calls, meetings, and mentoring. But last June something shifted. 3 of his biggest clients pulled out within a week. His calendar went from full to blank. First he panicked. But then in that silence he began painting again. A passion he abandoned decades ago. Within months his artwork was being featured in local galleries, and more importantly, he said, "For the first time in years I wasn't selling. I was expressing." The disruption was his redirection. Could something similar be unfolding in your life right now? Sagittarius, you are being rerouted. And the first signal is discomfort. Not pain, but a restlessness in your environment that makes the familiar suddenly feel foreign. Even your workspace may start to feel like a stranger's desk. Your phone may be silent where it used to buzz nonstop. These are not losses. They're signposts. The universe is whispering. You've mastered this chapter. Now it's time for a new one. But here's where it gets tender. When the universe removes something from our path, we often cling tighter, fearing we'll be left behind. Don't. This week your courage is not in action but in attention. In noticing. In listening when a job no longer speaks your name. In accepting that a goal you once fought for may now feel hollow, not because you failed but because you evolved. Sagittarius, you are not meant to settle. You are the philosopher, the teacher, the visionary. You came here to stretch boundaries, not reinforce them. And if you've been secretly longing for something more meaningful, a new way to serve, a different kind of success, then June is your answer. But not all at once. First, it arrives as interruption. Pay close attention between the 6th and 8th. That's when the energy will heighten. Watch for unexpected encounters. Someone asking for your help in a field you don't usually engage with. A casual conversation that stirs an old passion. A memory that surfaces out of nowhere and won't let go. These are your arrows, Sagittarius. Follow them. A woman named Eileen once told me, "I was working in finance for 30 years. I was good at it. But one morning I opened my laptop and physically couldn't touch the keyboard. I walked away, sat in the garden, and just stared. That day, I realized I'd been missing my calling. Working with animals. I started volunteering at a rescue center the next week. That keyboard silence? A divine invitation. Sometimes, not being able to do what we've always done is the soul's way of introducing us to what we're meant to do next. So ask yourself this week, what has stopped working not in function but in feeling? What parts of your life feel like a coat that no longer fits? Is it your job, your goals, your schedule, or even your definition of success? The signs will not shout. They will whisper. But you'll know. You'll feel it when something small unravels and leaves you with a strange sense of peace rather than panic. That's how you know it's not punishment, it's permission. And if fear arises, that's okay. Growth always brings its shadow. But remember, fear is not the enemy of purpose. It's the sign that purpose is near. Your fire sign spirit is built for this kind of expansion. What others fear, you chase. What others avoid, you explore. June is the month where you begin to see your gifts differently. Not as tasks to be performed, but as truths to be lived. Maybe you've been teaching, but now you're being called to write. Maybe you've been leading, but now you're being asked to support in a deeper way. Or maybe you're simply being asked to rest, not because you're weak, but because a new direction needs time to land. Let the distractions become your teachers. Let the silence be a map. And let the discomfort guide you back to your true north. Sagittarius, your purpose isn't something you find. It's something that finds you, when you are brave enough to pause. Are you ready to release what no longer fits? Because this week, the universe is rearranging the pieces. And if you listen, if you trust the disruptions, your next calling will begin to whisper your name. Gate to the end that needed to happen. Letting go of what no longer serves you. Sagittarius, you have always been brave. The first to leap, the one who walks away when the road no longer feels alive. But sometimes even the wanderer pauses at the edge of an ending, unsure if the next step is a fall or a flight. This week from June 5th to 11th, the universe may gently, or not so gently, ask you to let go. Not because you've done something wrong, but because a chapter in your life has served its purpose. Its lesson is complete, and now you're being invited to release it with grace. But here's the truth. Not all endings come with closure. Some arrive quietly, like a friendship that fades, a connection that goes cold, or a door that shuts without explanation. Others crash in with finality, the sudden goodbye, the betrayal, the job loss, the realization that love has grown in different directions. Endings like these can feel like failure, but they are not. They are the natural consequence of growth. They are what happens when your soul evolves faster than your surroundings. And Sagittarius, you are evolving. I once worked with a woman named Joy. She was 59, a mother of 4, and had spent 30 years in a marriage that looked perfect from the outside. But in the quiet of her own heart, she knew. They had stopped speaking the same language. He wanted stillness, she wanted expansion. The love hadn't vanished, but it had changed shape. And it no longer nourished her. She told me, I stayed because I didn't want to break anyone's heart. I left because mine was already broken. Some endings are acts of courage. Others are acts of mercy, but all are acts of truth. This week, you may be asked to say goodbye not just to people but to versions of yourself. The ambitious self that climbed ladders you no longer believe in. The agreeable self that said yes to stay safe. The dreamer who imagined a future that now feels foreign. What would happen if you lovingly retired these identities with gratitude instead of guilt? June doesn't come to destroy what you've built. Comes to refine it. To remind you that not every commitment is meant to last forever. That some soul contracts end when the growth is complete. And that holding on, simply because you're afraid of the unknown, is the only real loss. You may notice signs this week that something is unraveling. A message left unread. A meeting postponed indefinitely. A conversation that feels final even if no one says so. Let these signals be what they are, invitations to step back, not fight forward. Sagittarius, your instinct is to push through. But what if this time your strength is in surrender? Think of the tree that sheds its leaves. Not because it's dying, but because it's preparing for something deeper. It lets go not with panic but with trust. It knows the spring will come. Can you hold your endings with the same sacred patience? One of the most painful illusions we carry is that loss equals punishment. That if something ends, we've failed. But endings are often rewards. They release us from what has already served its sacred purpose. They give us our energy back. They return our power. Let me share another story, Daniel. A 47-year-old chef from Portland. He built a beautiful restaurant with his best friend. They poured their souls into it. But as time passed, the partnership frayed. The energy shifted. Daniel tried everything to fix it. Until one day, the lease was unexpectedly canceled. First, he was devastated. But then he said, "I didn't realize how exhausted I was. That place held my joy once, but it had become a weight." 3 months later, he started a small mobile kitchen serving food to shelters and schools. And he's never felt more fulfilled. Sometimes the universe ends what we don't have the strength to walk away from ourselves. This week, Sagittarius, don't resist what is fading. Don't chase what has already left your timeline. Instead, open space. Grieve what needs grieving. Bless what's leaving with the dignity it deserves. Say thank you, and then walk forward. Not away, but toward the next truth that's waiting for you. Letting go doesn't mean forgetting. It means remembering with peace. It means knowing that you are allowed to change your mind, your path, and your definition of home. One powerful practice for this week. Write a letter to something or someone you're ready to release. You don't have to send it. Just write. Speak your truth. Say the goodbye you never got. Then fold it. Burn it. Bury it. Let the act become a ritual. Because healing is not about erasing. It's about integrating. And remember, not every ending is loud. Some are quiet, sacred dissolvings that take place in your soul long before they happen in the world. You'll know it's time when you feel both sadness and relief in the same breath. You were not born to carry what no longer fits. Your soul signed up for movement, for change, for rebirth. And this June you are walking through a personal eclipse, not of light but of illusion. When it clears, your heart will know. What ended wasn't lost. It was completed. Gate 3, the soul that walks with you. A love beyond logic. Sagittarius, you've always loved with fire. Boldly. Generously. Sometimes recklessly. But this week between June 5th and 11th, a deeper current of love is rising. One that doesn't burn but glows. One that doesn't shout but remembers. This is not the week of new crushes or flirty beginnings. This is soul-level terrain, where recognition happens in a glance, where connection defies explanation, and where silence speaks louder than words. You may find yourself drawn to someone unexpectedly, not by charm, not by logic, but by a strange familiarity, as if you've met before. Perhaps you have. This is the energy of soul companions, people who are not here to complete you, but to remind you of your completeness. Sometimes this person will re-enter your life just for a moment. Other times they've been near all along, quietly orbiting you until the timing aligns. Regardless, this week brings encounters that stir something ancient in your heart. Not passion in the usual sense, but memory. A feeling that says, "Ah, there you are." Let me tell you about Clara, a widow in her 70s who once sat across from me, eyes brimming. I met George in a bookstore. We didn't speak for more than 5 minutes. He just handed me a book and smiled. But I swear to you, my soul stood up inside me when he did. They never saw each other again. But she told me that 5 minutes healed something I didn't even know was broken. Soul love does that. It doesn't always stay, but it always changes us. Sagittarius, your sign is ruled by Jupiter, the planet of expansion, of truth. And love in its highest form is the ultimate truth. So it's no wonder that this week you are being drawn to something or someone that bypasses surface attraction and dives straight into meaning. You may dream of someone you haven't spoken to in years. You may feel the presence of someone who's no longer in this world. You may find yourself crying at a song you've heard 100 times before. This isn't sentimentality. It's remembrance. Because real love doesn't begin when two bodies meet. It begins when two souls recognize each other. And sometimes the recognition is not joyful. Sometimes it comes with ache, the ache of unfinished stories, of lessons left halfway through. You might be revisited by the memory of a love you thought you'd moved on from. But this time it's not for nostalgia. It's for closure. Or perhaps for continuation from a new place. This is also a week to reflect on the energy you bring to relationships. Are you still chasing people who only meet you halfway? Are you still mistaking intensity for intimacy? Or are you ready to be met, truly met, without shrinking. Sagittarius, you're evolving. You can no longer pretend that shallow love satisfies your deep soul. You need someone who sees beyond your laughter, who holds space for your wildness and your vulnerability. And most importantly, you must become that person for yourself first. This week, try this. Sit quietly, hand over your heart, and ask, what kind of love do I long for now? Not the love I was taught to want, but the love I truly need. Then listen. You might hear an answer. Or you might feel a soft ache, an unnamed yearning. That too is your answer. Soul connections can take many forms. Not all are romantic. A conversation with a stranger that reawakens your purpose. A mentor who speaks truth so clearly it cuts through years of doubt. A child who looks at you and without words, teaches you what presence really means. Whatever form it takes, Sagittarius, don't dismiss it. Don't let your mind talk your heart out of the experience. Logic is useful, but love, true love, exists beyond it. Let me share another story. Julian, a 55-year-old artist from Texas, told me once, I kept seeing the same woman in my dreams. Her face was always turned slightly away. I never knew who she was, until one day in a gallery I saw her. In a painting. One I hadn't created yet. That vision, that painting, it became the beginning of the greatest creative and spiritual awakening of his life. Sometimes the soul companion we're waiting for is the part of ourselves we abandoned long ago. This week you are being called to reunite with someone with a purpose, with a part of your heart. Whether it's through a new meeting, a reconnection, or a quiet knowing, love is reaching for you. But not the love of romance novels or dramatic texts. The love that feels like a deep breath. A safe pause. You can be exactly who you are here. And if no one arrives, if no one texts, if you feel the silence instead, don't despair. The most important reunion this week may be the one happening within you. The moment you stop needing to be chosen because you finally choose yourself. You are not hard to love, Sagittarius. You were just waiting for the kind of love that recognizes your soul, not just your sparkle. And when it arrives in whatever form, you'll know. Not because it will be loud, but because it will be quietly undeniable. Conclusion: the journey back to your inner compass. Sagittarius, you've just walked through 3 sacred gates. Each one revealing a part of you that the world may not always see, but your soul has never forgotten. This week between June 5th and 11th, you are not just living your life, you are aligning with it layer by layer, sign by sign. The disruptions you felt? They are not chaos. They are course corrections. The endings that came without warning? They are clearings for your true path to unfold. The strange, stirring presence of someone in your heart or your dreams. That is not fantasy. That is recognition, soul to soul, truth to truth. Through it all, you are being guided. And even when it feels like you're walking alone, I promise you, the universe is walking beside you, gently placing signs at your feet, whispers in your heart, and courage in your breath. So I ask you, Sagittarius, what would change in your life if you truly trusted the signs this time? If you stopped brushing off the delays, the dreams, the déjà vu, and started honoring them as sacred messages written just for you? This is not the moment to force anything. It's the moment to receive, to watch, to feel, to allow your inner compass to come alive again. Because the direction you're heading now isn't random. It's realignment. And if this message touched something in you, even softly, let that be your confirmation. Share your experience below. What resonated most deeply with you this week? I'd love to read your reflections. They may be the light someone else needs right now. And if you haven't already, subscribe to our space here at Zodiac Wisdom. We don't just read the stars, we walk with them. Because true wisdom doesn't scream, it whispers. And the question is, will you listen?